What does an animator do? I've written, creates life where none existed before and has fun. I got divorced. I had time in 1970, I was 30. I bought a Super 8 camera for holiday films. Yeah. So I took it around my pals on holiday films. And I found it had a little bit on the book where it says you could bump on your titles. And I thought, what's that? So I got plastic titles from Dixon's, and I found about screwed in a cable release and got a tripod and put the letters down and spelt out the thing. Now, when it came back 3 weeks later, it moved. I couldn't believe that. And that stuck me ever since. That was it. That was the magic. Look, those things move by themselves. And whatever it is you're moving, buttons, paintings, doesn't matter. Yourself, it moves. And that's what sparked me. So that was it. And I just played. No, when I played around with it and it came back and I did a bit more, I thought the kids I taught would love to do this, because I taught 11 to 18-year-olds in a comprehensive school, right? Art and pottery, and we had a wide animation department, art department. So I couldn't teach animation during lessons because you have to draw your gym shoe, don't you? And you have to, so you can't. So I ran a silly club after school, and that is what turned me around. Kids who didn't want to be in school were there, right? And they didn't even see the damn thing move. I mean, we're talking here 3 weeks to get the film back. So, I mean, they did this stuff, kept their attention. I mean, now, obviously, instant. So that's what got me interested. I thought, wow, this is amazing. If it moves, we're talking 1970 here, when there's no... Video was just coming in. I know why, because we were invited by the work we did. The Times Ed got hold of it somehow. And we were invited down to, called Caxton 78, I think it was, in London, the big Wembley, is it? So we're invited down to have a little stall there. King George's Comprehensive Animation Club show this stuff. And during that, someone from the school's council spotted us, which is great, and said, oh, can we bring our video cameras up and see what you do? So they came up, and they were working on a school's council project about, what was it? Audio-visual media in school. Some great phrases and indications. So anyway, they came up, and that was really exciting for the kids, because they'd never seen video cameras before, you see, or little video screens like that. They'd seen television, but not video. So they videoed us going, and then because of that, we were allowed at last to use the animation in lessons. So what we did, we were not just doing it for fun, which is great, but we tied it to PE lessons, to biology lessons, to English lessons, all sorts of stuff. And that was the moment. It was a biology lesson, because I trained to be a doctor, so I've always been interested in bringing the two together, animation and art. And there's this kiddie sitting at because we had some little paper light boxes, so I got them a while back on something, and she had a diagram of the heart, and I've got this on tape somewhere, and she was trying to make the blood go through the heart. She said, I can't make the blood go through the valves. I can't make it go. So we got the biology guy down, and he had a look at the page in the book, and he says, it's a misprint. He said, I've been drawing that diagram on the board for 20 years, and I never knew there was a valve missing. I thought, that's it. Animation is like open heart surgery without the blood. If you animate something, you have to understand it. You're not just writing left ventricle valve, right ventricle valve. You're actually saying this is coming in there, and then it's going there, and it's doing that. And if it doesn't, then there's something wrong. And that was what changed my idea of like that. So I started making films to use, like I made Evolution, I made films like Bodyworks, I used to teach the history of art, so I made films on Mondrian and Michelangelo and all, to show these folks moving and having fun. Movie Maker was my opening from my dining room table to the world. So I'm reading this magazine. There's a little bit in it. Luckily, the deputy editor was interested in animation. So that's where I got and then I entered the 10 Best competition, which was a national competition. So little films that I'd done for fun, I entered, and that was, if you like, the first step. And it won something, and I got to meet Jimmy Stewart, who shook my hand and give us a trophy and all that, because Tony Rose was fanatic about films. He was mad about sharing it with people. Great guy. I mean, he's long gone. But that idea of moving, which is not easy, from amateur to professional. So he gave people a bridge, and I don't think there are many now like that. These little short films that are made simply for fun, at home and to use in school, were seen at an amateur competition somewhere by an agent, and it was her. And it was one night I was just working at home, and a voice said, "Hello, this is Nicole." And I thought, it's my friend Sylv being stupid. So I nearly said, "Oh," but anyway, I didn't. And it was Nicole Jouve, and she was at a Cannes an amateur section of Cannes, and she'd seen something I'd done, and she said, I would like to, distribute your films. I said, no, I'm a teacher. I don't distribute anything. But she said, well, let's try. So by then I must have had about 12 short films, from Mondrian to the history of transport and evolution. And she said, well, let's distribute them. So I said, well, go on. So I was still teaching, and she did this. Now, I didn't know she was the world's top agent for not just children's television, because her mum worked with Jean Renoir. She was an unusual person. She was a loose cannon, like myself, doing her own thing. She would pick what interested her and say, oh, I'd like to distribute that. Right. Oh. She wasn't answerable to anybody. She had offices in New York and Paris. It all sounds very posh. Little room in New York and little room in Paris. And she was respected by other, TV people around the world, because whatever she chose, they showed. And so the stuff that she picked for me was shown all over the world. And because it was all set to music, she could do that. In 1980, she got the contract to animate the Just So stories. She pinched it from Disney, because the Kipling estate didn't want Disney to animate the Just So stories, because they didn't like how he animated the Jungle Book. So she got it. So, I mean, there's our irony, because people say to me, do you want to work for Disney? Well, no, because I got the job. I was sitting at my dining room table. There's pictures there on my website. I was sitting animating this 10 by 10 minute series for world television. And it had to be done in a year. That was part of the deal. It's like something from a fairy tale, isn't it? You get this, but you have to do it. So in a year, and that meant I couldn't teach and do that. So I gave up teaching in 1980. What I try to do, because I'm a teacher, is use animation to explain how things work. That's my interest, right? That's why I made films on evolution. So in 4 minutes, you've got, and David Attenborough liked it. So there you are. It's a big one. So yeah, so my big one was that actually worked at all, and to show how your body works, or to show how we've said your heart works. Nicole came in and asked me to do the Just So stories, words. I would animate, a British gas commercial, words. I would animate a corporate something. I would animate the people in Paddington Bay, words. If I was paid to do something, you can bet it was to do to not my choice. My choice is to listen to something or have no sound at all, and it's sound effects or whatever, that you don't need. Here I am talking away, but you don't need words. And I only use words if as a job. The thing that inspired me was Fantasia, when I went to see it when I was 7. And that's what stuck in my head. Not particularly that then I want to be an animator, nothing like that. I just thought, that devil coming out of the mountain, it does that. Ta-da! I remember seeing it, wow. And that just stuck with me, an idea of things moving. So when I did finally start to play when I was 30, I suppose that was all still sitting there and came out. Had to wait 23 years. Got there. And poor old Disney was so disappointed, because obviously it didn't catch on, partly because it was the war and all the rest of it. One thing, and also people said, where's Donald Duck and what, Hawaii? Well, they didn't say Hawaii because they weren't Geordie, but they would say, well, and he was so disappointed. The story goes, a friend of mine, David Williams, he documented his life, he said that then Disney went on to build Disneyland, because he himself thought that animation was the learning tool of the future. And he says that when he did Donald in Magic Land. This is what he wanted to do. But no, the public, no, come on, we want jokes here. So he didn't do it. Sesame Street, I remember talking briefly to him, he's dead now, but he wanted to use animation. The first Sesame Street is when you could see the knitting on the little characters and everything, very simple, but it was educational. And then he got the thing from the BBC, he wanted to do one with them, but they wanted it to be fun. It had to be entertainment. He wasn't allowed to make it educational. He said himself, that's Hampson, wasn't it? I met him only briefly. But he said his aim was to use animation like he did in Sesame Street to help people learn things. So they both want to do learning. And my agent, I mean, that's why I pulled out with my agent, because she was great. I mean, here's an agent for World TV. She wanted to do another series of the Just So stories, but I said, there's only one. Oh, we could call them the Just So stories. I said, no, I'm animating his story. And I put to her a pilot for animating How Your Body Works. And she said, no, they will not be interested. And she was right. They will. I've used computers since 91, so I'm using computers now all the time. I wouldn't go back to drawing, tracing, painting, filming the way I did, having had a go at it like now. And when I taught the students right up to 2 years ago when I did my exhibition, so I packed in. And it was very interesting to work with people who had never seen film or any of that. So when they were dealing with Premiere and it was talking about the frames and the thing, you know, they didn't know what a frame was, you know, so I bring in a bit of film. So that's what that actually is. But it's gone. So again, I guess it's like typography, isn't it? Nobody uses lead type, but they use kerning. It's one of those things where you've transitioned, and it is very useful to have had your hands on, as you know, with real film, and then transform it over into now. What I was finding with some of the students, because a lot of them do 3D animation, as you know. Now, I started to learn it when I was starting to run my company in after Mum died, but 1992, and I found it. I started to have a go, but then I ran a limited company and I was working for jobs, so you had to deliver. So I got other people to do the 3D because I didn't have time to learn it. Prior to that, I was doing it for fun, but I wasn't. I was doing it as a living. So I didn't have time to learn it. So I never learned 3D. It's a thing I would have been interested in doing, but I didn't. Some other people did it. So therefore, when I was teaching in some of the departments, some of the students were doing 3D. And I found what was really interesting was there's masses of them running and flying and zooming because you can. It's not part of the plot, but what the hell? And a lot of this happening all the time because you can do it. Now, if you're drawing it, you bloody don't, because that is a lot of drawing. So therefore, I'm going to think very carefully before I zoom up or very carefully before I run something. And therefore, I want to know where it is and that it is very important and will create an impact. But now that doesn't create an impact because it's happening all the time. You start from the something, whatever it might be, and let it evolve. It evolves itself. It's funny. I mean, years ago, my mom said, for an artist, I was blind. And I realised now she's absolutely right, because my friend Jen, who I work closely with, she's my business partner. So, yes, for an artist, I was blind. And she was saying, and I think, what? I didn't see that. I don't see, somebody will say, I didn't see that. I saw that. In animation, I find that tree is a good example of something I've seen. I didn't realize. Mainly, it's something that you do, like with the plasticine, I could do that, or you draw, I could do that. Or with the hand-drawn animation, it grew into illustrating stuff, first of all for television and then for corporate jobs and whatever, and it grew and grew and grew. And I would still be doing that if my best friend hadn't died, and she was working with Save the Children, and she died at 60, which is young. And Jen said to me, will you ever do the things that you really want to do with your animation? Will you work with adults with special needs? Will you do your pottery again? Will you work? And I said, no, not if I'm working here, because we were busy with, well, you know what's like, sorts of stuff. So I packed in and went to Ireland. Don't ask me why Ireland, but we did. So I went to Ireland, 10 years in Ireland. We did all of that with great freedom and played around and did all sorts of stuff. We've been back about 5 years now back. And it's nice to come back to your hometown. Go away and come back and recommend it. The bits I'm doing are what I mentioned, little bits, like because I want to help out if I can with the vegan world thing. So I'm doing little bits like the tree and whatever, but I'm not engaged on what I would call a big animation. But I'm working on a thing called Quizzy Cat Shows How Your Body Works, which I've been dying to do before I pop off. I'm coming back again to that. It all goes back to that heart, that girl doing the heart. And this little cat who I've developed as a character goes around showing us stuff. Again, sound, not talking. So we'll see. Where my time is spent now, I give this show to celebrate being 80. So I gathered together my life's work from the age of 11, which for some reason traveled around with me, and thousands of cells, right? So I had a big show, all this stuff on show. Then afterwards, I was invited to sort of sell. And what I do is I've been selling off for local charities. So I sell off for a cat charity and 2 other charities. And I've made over 70,000 so far since 2020. So that's what I've been doing. So I've worked through a lot of my paintings and a lot of my prints, and it's all up on my website there, and it's still happening now. And that's where a lot of my time goes. So people want to buy something, I pack it up, I send it or deliver it. The cells are waiting to be sorted, and you know better than anyone. There's a face and an eye and an ear and a thing, and some of them have backgrounds, one background to a scene. So that's a tremendous amount of sorting. One day I'll sort them face to face. That's probably the most effective film I've ever made. I mean, I made it in 2 hours, just drawing. And it was at the end of film. You know what it was like when you had film and you had a little bit of film left. And I wanted to use it up before I sent it to the, the process. I thought, what can I do on that? Oh, I'll draw. So I drew a face because it fits on the paper easily. And drew a little baby. I kept drawing. And I thought, oh, I'll make it grow. And then I thought, oh, I'll add a stash. And it just grew. So it's one of those few moments, and you must have had these as well, where the film just took over and it just did it. And I ended up with a skull and whatever. I did it on Super 8. I showed it at a local city club just for fun at the end. And somebody came up to me afterwards and said, you should put sound on that. And I thought, I didn't think it was that. I was playing. It was an experiment. Now this guy died of cancer 2 weeks later. And he'd seen in that, because if you've seen the film, it started and it ends up with a skull. So it's birth to death. And so I did. I did again years later on 16. I put sound on, sound effects. And my agent got that. I mean, it must have gone through 25 countries. It must, like your film, has won awards and things because it hits, it tells it. But I didn't do it for that. I did it because that other thing, that whatever it is, that animators and artists and poets and writers and dancers have, when something bigger than you takes over. The best thing ever, and I can give you the background on this, was my mum's thing of never, never, never give up. I thought she invented that, but she got it from Winston Churchill, I believe. But it's a great one, and also she was a herbalist, all right, and her granddad had 9 herbalist shops, and she was trained from the age of 11 because she left school at 11 in herbalism. She'd probably been burned as a witch now. You know. I wish I'd listened more. But what she'd learned from him was a marvelous sort of, if you like, thing you repeat every day in every way. I'm getting better and better. And she learned that from him. And it's a very useful thing to say. And he learned it from a guy called, I looked it up, Coué in France. And Émile Coué is what's a psychologist, French psychologist, turn of the century. And he was quite famous. I didn't know this at the time. Every day, in every way, I'm getting better and better. So it was like your own self, keep yourself going. Which summed up as my dad had a good one because he was a merchant navy captain. His was worse things happen at sea. And that is very, very useful. When things go all wrong, you say, well, worse things happen at sea. So it can't be that bad, whatever's happened. So that's useful. So that's it. Don't give up.